Hey, this is Steve Bloom, and you are listening to the Geekcast Radio Network. How you doing there? Yo!
Hello!
Hello.
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 Yo, yo.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Hello and welcome to the 340th episode of Geekcast Radio. I am one of your hosts, TFG1Mike. And joining me, I don't know if this is not his network debut, because he was on Altered Geek for years and years. He helped Steve Megatron launch that show. But I don't know if this person has ever been on the Geekcast Radio flagship podcast. It is none other than Mike Boothninja Powers. Hello, sir. How are you?
Good, and I believe I have been. It would have been like 2009, 2010.
Yep, the early days.
Yep.
Probably, most likely.
Early stuff.
Yeah, I'm going to have to. Yeah, I went to do some research on it, and then I was like, crap, I have to do other things. But Mike is here. We are going to be talking about why iPhone. Oh, boy. So, I've been. So, when we started the network, I had already been watching YouTube for a couple of years, and I got into watching tech YouTubers at the time. Now, this was at a time in 2009, 2010, where it wasn't everybody that's out there on tech YouTube today. Like, the landscape back then was so totally different. And every once in a while, we would do a tech episode of Geekcast Radio. Hell, I remember this like it's the back of my hand. It wasn't you or Steve or anybody, but it was other people that I had on. Episode 4 of Geekcast Radio at the time was all about the iPhone, because at the time I had the iPhone 3GS at the time, I think, because I used to be an Apple user. But yeah, how did this even come about? Like, did you say you wanted to be on? Did I ask? Yeah, I don't even remember how we got here.
wait, the genesis of this episode then? So
this episode, yes, this.
Okay, so bear with me because it's Friday after work and I'm a little bit inebriated, but I should be coherent enough to do this podcast. So I think it's just it stemmed from I don't post a lot on social media about anything, and anything that I do post is more of it's not for anyone to have an opinion on. It's more like journaling for me at this point, because one of the things I like about Facebook is just like I hit up Facebook daily, but it's only to look at the memories. Like, I want to see what I did on this day in perpetuity, you know. So I chronicle like moments that happen in my life. So I think with this particular instance, it was just like every September, I posted about my success in pre-ordering an iPhone, and then I shared. I don't even think I did this year. Usually, I share like some unboxing photos of the new iPhone that I got. Right. But I think you saw my pre-order stuff, my pre-order posts, and reached out to me about wanting to do this episode.
Yeah. Well, because again, like I said, I want to say since about late 2019 up until now, so basically the last almost 5 years, I have been watching a lot of tech YouTube, because from 2010 or 11 to 2017, I had a dumb phone. I went back to dumb phones. I didn't do smartphones anymore. After the iPhone 3GS, I was just kind of done, and I wasn't in a position to actually be able to purchase the next new, whatever the next new thing was. I think the last smartphone I remember having, And it's so sad because the only reason why I loved that phone so much is because it had the best weather app of any phone ever. It was the HTC Sensation, and the only reason why the HTC Sensation, I say, has had, because it's no longer around, the best weather app ever is because there were actual, I mean, yeah, the Google app has it now, but like, there were really good weather app animations. Like, I remember there being a thunderstorm. I opened my phone, and I don't necessarily need to look outside. I can just look at my phone. And I know I'm stupid, folks. I get it. It's okay. But yeah, so basically after that, from like 2012 to 2017, I didn't have smartphones anymore. And when I met Karen at the time in 2017, and we upgraded phones and everything else, I ended up with the Samsung S9.
Okay.
And I've just never...
think I had that phone for work. But anyways, that's besides what. Keep going. Sorry, keep going.
So, yeah, so I had the Samsung S9. I had it in purple, because purple's my thing. Once you go purple, you never go back. Unless, you can have it in any color as long as it's black, though. So I had that, and I had that for the longest time, and I'm not a person that upgrades, and this is going to play into the conversation, and once Mike starts telling his story, folks, this is why the whole thing happened. Because, I'm not a person that upgrades every year. I'm a person that I settle into something, and I like it, and it works for what I need it to work, for what I need it to do for me. Like, my phone is social media, it's posting about the podcast, it's watching YouTube, it's watching other things, it's playing games, it's texting, messaging, whatever, anything other than actually making phone calls. You know what? I wish the phone part of the thing doesn't even work. I don't need people to call me, just text me like a normal person. So, yeah, that's me. I don't upgrade. Not often, anyway. When Karen just before Karen got really, really sick in 2021, they announced the Pixel 6 lineup. And I was like, ooh, Tron phone. Because everybody will say that camera bar reminds them of the Tron movies. Most people, anyway. And I upgraded to that. And I was like, oh, I got the Pixel 6 Pro at the time. And that lasted me from 2021 up until about 3 months ago, when I don't know what the hell happened to it. It was something with the charger, it was something with the phone, and the easiest way for me to get a phone without, having to shell out large sums of money that I didn't have was go through the insurance, because literally there was something broken with the phone. And if I'm paying for insurance, then why not? They were supposed to send me an exact replacement, Pixel 6 Pro. They sent me a Pixel 7 Pro, so technically I got a 1-year upgrade when I didn't even... it's fine, it's whatever. I don't really like... for me, and somebody said this, I forget which tech YouTuber it was, but curved phones or curved glass or over the edge or however, curved displays. Where I hold my phone is in the curvature of where your index finger and your thumb is. It's that section. So it's curved. My hand is not a flat rail. Thank you. It's not a sharp edge. It's a curved thing. So, yeah, the 7 Pro is a little less curved than the 6 was. But you, sir... This is Mike Powers, folks. Mike Powers, Mike and I met through Steve Megatron. Mike used to do a podcast a long time ago called The Lunch Table. They eventually called it The Lunch Room, and it became a few other things, I think. And then we've had him on Geekcast Radio for years. Like I said, he started Altered Geek with Steve Megatron. It was the two of them at the beginning. He also did, what was the Off the Cuff? He did Off the Cuff with Joe, Art, and Sean Z. Was there another person with you guys?
That was it. It was also XRG. Okay. I did XRG for you guys.
Yep. Did XRG for us. So Mike's been around. Mike, there has to be something special for Mike to come out of his podcast shell. which that's what this is. And the ultimate question is, after I saw his post about, well, it's my yearly tradition to get the next new iPhone, and the question running through my head is, other than slight camera improvements and Apple Intelligence, which is there doesn't seem to me, from all the reviews I've seen of, and you have the iPhone 16 Pro.
Yes.
That's the one we're going to be talking about tonight, folks, just for everybody's clarification. He has the iPhone 16. He has them both. He has the 16 and the 16 Pro, but we're talking about the Pro. I saw everybody's MKBHD, Mr. Who's the Boss, Michael Fisher, insert whatever tech YouTuber you want to put. I saw everybody's iPhone 15, and because even though I'm not in the Apple camp anymore, I still like to watch the stuff. I still like to see what's in the stuff. And I like supporting those people that I watch. So it's one of those things where I watched all the iPhone 15 Pro reviews. I watched all the iPhone 16 Pro reviews. Not much has changed in a year. So why? Explain why. Please.
Okay. So this is, first of all, it's a loaded question. But I just want to preface this with anyone that would comment or has a comment to say about Apple. I don't disagree. I will never argue again. I will never argue in favor of Apple for anybody.
Okay.
I just want to make that abundantly clear. I don't disagree with what the naysayers say. I don't think that they're wrong in what they say about Apple. I think that Apple has a core audience, and I am that core audience there, and that doesn't appeal to everybody. Mm-hmm. And that's fine. And to me, that is fine. But I will never stand and yell at you like I don't care what phone people use. That's the dumbest thing in the world. But for me, I think that I still remember. So my very first phone I got in 2005. I was a broke ass college student, and I was living on my own. The very first cell phone was a free phone from Singular. Does anyone remember what Singular Wireless was?
Oh yes, absolutely.
Okay,
See,
well,
I didn't want to go. Well, yes, because I'm old. Thank you. I didn't want to go that. No, you can go ahead and tell your story. You can tell your history.
But at the time, it was just I'm just getting a phone. But I had also just a couple of years earlier was the release of the iPod, and I'm a sucker for aesthetics. I like things that look good. I'm a sucker for clean animations and for really well designed products. Something that feels good to hold and to handle. So this goes back earlier than even 2005. This goes back to like 2000, 2001, when I'm like learning about like building computers and all this stuff. And I found out that you can't build a Mac. You have to buy a Mac. Yeah, you can make a Hackintosh, sure. But I didn't, that never like appealed to me. And then Apple released like the iPod, and I'm like, oh, this is really cool. And I remember seeing my first glimpse of Mac OS X on screensavers on Tech TV. Mm-hmm. Kids, ask your parents. So I love the way that it looked. To me, it was way ahead of anything that Windows XP was doing at the time. In fact, you saw like Windows XP was trying to do what Apple was doing, which is what, in my opinion, controversial opinion here, which is what Windows has always tried to do. But Apple releases the iPod. I don't have a Mac at this time. I have a Windows computer because that's all I could afford. And Apple released the iPod, and my cousin bought one. And he only had a Windows computer, but the only way to use an iPod with Windows was with like the Music Match. Remember the Music Match jukebox software?
Yep.
Okay, that's the only. It wasn't even that. There was a plugin that worked with the Music Match jukebox software. That's how you use the iPod with a Windows computer. And at the time, I was using Windows Media Player to manage all of my content because iTunes wasn't a thing yet for Windows. And I told my cousin, I said, the iPod was really slick. I loved it from the get-go, but I'm like, I'm not using Music Match. I'm just not going to do it. When Apple releases iTunes for Windows, I will go out and I will buy an iPod. And what was it? Forgive me, I didn't do any research coming into this. I'm just going off of like my memory and what I remember. So if my timeline's a little fuzzy, forgive me. But I believe it was like it was 2002, like fall of 2002. There was that splash thing that said, "Hell has finally frozen over. Here's iTunes for Windows."
Today we are announcing that the second generation iTunes doesn't just run on the Mac, but it runs on Windows too. Exactly the same thing on Mac and on Windows. This is not some baby version of iTunes or the music store. It's the whole thing.
And it was the launch of the iTunes Music Store as well on across OS X and Windows. And I kept my word. I went and bought an iPod. And now I've got this iPod that has this way of putting, I can put all my music on it and I can use iTunes. Well, I dumped Windows Media Player so fast.
Yep.
iTunes. Yep. There was no competition. And then the real thing that solidified it was with the launch of the iTunes store, Apple was trying to, grab their market share as fast as possible. So they were running all these promotions. There was the thing with like Pepsi, where you buy a 20-ounce bottle of pop and underneath the cap was probably a code for a free song.
Yep.
Right. So, and there was a way to cheat that. If you tipped the bottle sideways, you could see what was under the cap before you even purchased it. So you could make sure that you always bought a pop that had a song.
Yep.
So I quickly built up. I had all of my pirated stuff, my ripped CDs, my torrented stuff, and then I had like legal music that I was quote unquote purchasing from iTunes with caps, and then it became. So I've got this iPod, but the iPod wasn't just music. Like it also was, it had a calendar function to it. It had a contacts app in it. It had all this other stuff, but Windows had no way of using that stuff.
Yep.
So all of a sudden I had this device that had more capability than what my computer could provide it. So it was later on, this was like early 2004, I pulled the trigger and I went and bought my first Mac. And it was solely for the purpose of putting contacts on my iPod.
Yep.
I went, which I never used. Used.
Nope. It was only if you needed to remember a phone. Like, we come from a generation, folks, where I can say these numbers because I don't think they're active anymore. 617-585-8487, 617-585-2539. Those were, one was my grandmother's number, one was our house number. Like, we come from a generation where we would just remember stuff because we came from the generation. Yeah, you had the information.
Phone numbers.
Yeah, exactly. But I think, good.
No, it's okay. No, it's fine. So I bought an iBook. My very first iBook was a G. Oh man, I don't think it was a G4. I think it was a G3 iBook it was 800 megahertz and it had 364 megabits of RAM. So and an airport card. I had to pay extra for wireless functionality in the computer. But I love that thing so much, and like it really, like, you always hear about how the iPod was a gateway thing to Apple's ecosystem. And right. They got me. Like, it was they made this thing. I got iTunes. I used it. I loved it. And I was like, there was more functionality I wanted out of it, but I needed to buy an iBook. So I went and I put myself in debt and I bought my first iBook just so I could put contacts on my iPod. And, I did other things with it. Like, I learned how to do, I made a couple of anime music videos and all this other stuff. And I got, for a little while I've got my iPod. I bought a second iPod when they came out with the video iPod. I got into like ripping videos to put on my and to put on my iPod for a couple of years, and then I remember I upgraded to my next Mac, and it was like when Apple switched from PowerPC to Intel processors in 2006. I bought a Mac. It was an Intel Core 2 Duo because that was the hot thing. And I had that. I think I got that in 2000, like early 2007 is when I got that. I love that thing, but keep in mind I had the iPod. But so now we're getting into where like my phones, right? So I had a 2005. I got my very first phone. It was a free phone when you signed up with the carrier, and it was a Motorola V180. It was a little piece of crap flip phone that had like a blue keypad on it. And my friends very, very quickly dubbed it the toilet bowl phone.
Yeah, it was.
Because when you open it up, the keypad is blue and it looks like a toilet.
Yep.
So, I mean, it was a slick phone, but you know, okay, whatever. It did what it was supposed to. I bought it so I could call people. And then 2006 rolled around. I moved back home. I moved from Grand Rapids to back home with closer to my family, and I went through the whole like Motorola rocker phase because like everyone in the tech sphere was like, Apple's going to do a phone. They're going to do something with phones. It's going to be the iPod phone. It's going to be something. And 2006 was kind of like coming to a close. I remember it was like the fall of 2006, and I was like, kind of like I kind of want a new phone, but Apple didn't do anything at WWDC. They didn't do anything at Macworld in 2006. So I was like, okay, fine. I'm going to upgrade my phone, and I went and got a Motorola Sliver. And I love that phone too, because maybe I have a because of my first phone this is a longer story, jumping ahead here for a second, but maybe this is why I'm so averse to foldable phones. My first phone was a flip phone, and it was that crappy V180. Every single phone I've had since then has been a slab. The Sliver was the slab form of the Razor. For anyone that doesn't remember, it was. I did not remember, and I did not remember. I'm looking at images of it right now. Oh my god, yes. So it was the Razor, but it didn't fold. It wasn't a clamshell. Yep. So, anyways, I bought that phone in like late 2006. I was with Singularity become AT&T. I switched over and all this other stuff, and I love that phone. And then along comes Macworld 2007. Mm-hmm. And right or wrong, I'm just going to say this right now. If anyone hasn't ever heard me on any of the other podcasts that we've done where we've mentioned Apple products in any way, shape, or form, I don't see myself as like having somebody that I would like consider to be like a role model to me. Everyone's like, oh, don't meet your role models. I don't think I have, like, there's no one that I'm like, I'd be worried to meet. Mm-hmm. I've read several biographies about him, and seen movies and interviews and all this other stuff. But Steve Jobs is somebody that if I had to pick somebody that was a role model for me, it's Steve Jobs. Mm-hmm. I would watch the keynotes that he did, and I've watched them over and over and over again. And the guy knew how to sell. I did this last year in the lead up to the iPhone 15. He didn't, when he was in charge, he wasn't selling you a product. He was selling you an idea of the system, of the ecosystem of, It's not even, yes, it's partially it, but I think it's more, he's not selling you a product. He's selling you an experience. Yep. He's not telling you like what it does. He's telling you how it feels to use the product, how it feels to use the device that they've conjured up out of thin air. Okay.
This is a day I've been looking forward to for 2.5 years. So, 3 things: a widescreen iPod with touch controls, a revolutionary mobile phone, and a breakthrough internet communications device. An iPod, a phone, and an internet communicator. An iPod, a phone. Are you getting it? These are not 3 separate devices. This is one device. and we are calling it iPhone. Today, Apple is going to reinvent the phone.
And I again, watching all the keynotes, there was the ones, everyone that he did was about selling the experience. And then unfortunately, when he had to step down and then eventually he passed away, which honestly I can say is probably the only time I've been impacted by I don't want to say celebrity, I'll say a famous person's passing. And when I say I was impacted, I don't mean I was in tears or saying I couldn't go to work or anything like that. But it was like one of those things like, I'm never going to get to see this guy present anything again. Like, right, and that was pretty much the extent of it. Like, I wasn't like, woe is me or anything like that, because I don't know him. I didn't know him. Okay. Right. So yeah. I'm just saying, because there are people that take things to the extreme.
Okay, well, thanks for calling me out. Well, so just in brief, because it's funny you even talking about this. This is actually I wrote about this. I wrote about quote unquote celebrity, deaths and things like that, or having grief over famous people passing kind of thing. I wrote a blog about this because, like, for me, it's like if I get a chance to talk to, if I mention the name David Wise, what is the first thing you think of?
I honestly couldn't even tell you who that is.
Okay, you don't. Okay, it's fine. So David Wise. No. I just wanted to make sure because I don't want to throw a name out there that you may or may not know, and I don't want to make it sound like I'm treating you like you're stupid, and you're not. Obviously, hello. I'm not saying that at all. I just want to make sure. So David Wise was the writer on. He did writing for Transformers cartoons, the G1 cartoon in the 80s. He cemented the 87 Turtles character as he's an animation writer. Okay, when he died back in, like I said, 2010, whenever it was that he passed away, it affected me to the point of, oh my God, I've interviewed this guy. Like I had a chance to have an experience with him, so I see where you're coming from. I see where but for me, it's like if anyone affects me in any way, whether it's just like Robin Williams dying, basically the whole world just let out a big cry session because of all the movies that he starred in and of all the stuff that he said and everything else, and you just have that reaction. So I understand that you don't, and that's fine. I'm not trying to make this whole thing about that. This is more, but anyway.
Maybe I shouldn't have stepped on that landmine.
It's okay. I mean, we kind of have to because, Steve isn't with us anymore.
But everything after every keynote that they had done, which I don't think Macworld went on too much longer after that, but like WWDC, the iPhone announcements, everything post Steve, Jobs, or whatever you want to call him, became more about selling you the product, not the experience. And that is very apparent when you watch them all back to back.
Oh, yeah.
And so I just, when he got up on stage in 2007, which was pretty much like the height of, I mean, Apple has obviously gotten bigger since 2007, but like that was,
it was groundbreaking.
And I don't think they get enough credit for the showmanship that was in that presentation. I don't think they get enough credit for what they announced and what they did from various people. But he got up there and I was like, oh, again, hook, line, and sinker. I was like, I had to have it. But at the time, it was, here's this phone, and at the time, it's $499. Because they weren't going to do the subsidized model. There's no contract, there's no nothing. You go in, you pay this price, you are not under contract with the carrier.
Right.
And I was like, well, I can't do that. And I remember it came out at the time it came out in the middle of summer. And I worked, I don't remember what I was doing. I think I worked Friday nights and then I worked Saturday nights at the movie theater or something. I don't remember what my schedule was exactly then, but I remember like before I went into my shift, I stopped into my local AT&T store and they had the kiosks set up there. And And this is interesting because I can relate this to another product that I just purchased. But when the Apple shows their products, they tend to look bigger than they actually are in real life. And so I kind of thought that about the iPhone at the time. I was like, man, that thing looks huge, especially compared to my sliver. It won't, it's gonna, whatever. And I went into the Apple store, and I was like, this was the dumbest idea. I should not have done this. I literally went into work after playing with the phone. I touched it. No one came and talked to me at the AT&T store. I picked up the demo thing. I looked at it for all of about 5 minutes. I swiped through a couple of things. I didn't play any games. I didn't have a chance to use any of the features. I was like, I left there going, I have to get this. And I remember it was a Saturday night. The phone came out on Friday. It was a Saturday night. I was working at the movie theater. I spent all night at the theater when I wasn't running around threading projectors. Like, how do I get this? How can I make this work? Because I know that I've got a credit card. I can just go and buy it. But it's like, how do I make sure that I can pay this thing off?
Yep.
So, and I remember I got out of work at 2:00 in the morning. I'd already made arrangements with my sisters to go to the mall. I didn't want to go to AT&T and buy it. I went to the Apple store, and I went. My closest Apple store was an hour away, so I got out at 2:00 in the morning. I didn't sleep. I came home. I was reading all the reviews. I was looking at all this stuff, and I got up. I got my sisters up early, and we went down to the mall. We were there when the AT&T store opened, and I remember I walked into the store, and it was the first and only time I'd ever seen this in the Apple store. Every table that they had was completely cleared of all devices, and they I still have one of these. There were iPhone bags. It was a heavy duty, almost plasticky bag, like foldable bag that has like the shoelace handle thing, and it had a print of the iPhone on the box or on the bag, and it was black. And in each bag, there was already an iPhone in each bag, and the store was full of them, and there was no line. I walked in and I walked in and I said, I think I got the cheapest one. It was like, I think there was a 4 or an 8, and then they released an 8 later. Anyways, I walked in and I said, I just need the cheapest one that I can get. And I got it, and I walked out, and that it changed like everything for me, because I had a phone. I didn't have, when I worked at the movie theater, I did a double on Saturdays. Like from almost the moment that I worked, that's what it was. Friday night, I went to the Apple store, and I went to the AT&T store. I looked at the phone. I knew I had to have it. I went in on Saturday to work, and I did a double, and I sat there for 17 hours thinking about how I'm going to buy this phone. But when I would go into work on Saturdays I had already been working at the theater for a year.
Right.
Saturdays to me didn't exist. The world didn't exist for me on Saturdays. Okay, so I would get up at 8:00 in the morning. I would drive into the theater. I'd get out at 2 a.m. Maybe I'd go out with a couple people after work was done, but I'd be home by 3, and I would go to sleep, and I'd wake up on Sunday. So my week was literally like, there was Friday, and then there was Sunday. I had no contact with anybody on Saturdays. No, I didn't know what was going on in the outside world. And then all of a sudden, I was able to engage with my friends on Saturday. I was able to visit all the forums, all the websites that I went to, all the RSS feeds that I would look through on, like, Sunday through Friday. I had access to all that stuff, and it changed everything for me. And the next year, there was they came out with the 3G, and because I bought the first phone and it wasn't under contract, they did the subsidized thing for that year. So, it only cost me $200. I can afford $200. So let me go. Okay, so I went and bought it for $200. And then I don't remember what happened with the 3GS. I think I got somebody else to sign. I think I added like a family member, and they ported their phone in. But because they ported their phone in, their line was eligible for an upgrade. So I bought the 3GS for $200 on their phone, on their line. So it kind of went, so from there, it was like this TikTok thing, right? So it was like with the iPhone 4, I was able to buy it I was able to do it under my contract. So I was like, okay, here's $200 more, give me a new phone. End of story. And which I don't know how we want to do this, but I'm just going to say right now, the iPhone 4 and the 4S is one of my top iPhone designs. Hands down, only one other phone has beaten it, in my opinion. And then, and then on the 4S, I used a family member's upgrade thing to get it for $200. It went back and forth. And then with the 6 was the last time I used my upgrade for it. And that I was able to get it for $200, and that was the first time. The 6 is the other phone. There has not been a display. I don't care. Don't get me wrong. I love OLED panels. I love them to death. There has not been another display on an iPhone that looked like the one on the iPhone 6, and I will die on that hill.
Okay, just the straight iPhone 6. There's no 6S. Okay.
No. There was. Okay, so there's a 6, and then there was a 6 Max or a 6 Plus. I don't remember if it was Max or a Plus at the time.
Yeah. Okay, gotcha.
But that phone, that line, the 6 line, that display, nothing else looked like it. And I remember the following year with the 6S, which was another big deal because now I didn't have to use anyone's upgrade. So when the 6S debuted, I didn't have to use anybody's upgrade on my family plan. Like I didn't have to connive anybody or use anybody else's upgrade thing to get a phone for $200. Apple introduced what they call the iPhone upgrade program, which is you pay us X number of dollars a month. We give you a phone, you get a phone, and after it, we'll give you a phone and Apple Care, and after 2 years, the phone is paid off. However, at the end of 1 year, you are eligible to upgrade to a brand new phone.
I remember that. Yes, I remember that. Yep.
That right there changed everything. So I think for me, that changed everything. So now I don't remember what year this is. I want to say it's like 2015. So now I've got this, and now I'm in this iPhone upgrade program, and I've got the 6S. The following years when things started getting really weird with Apple's products, because now we've got a phone, but they're not, up until this point, the phones were identical. And everyone that you bought, you were either paying extra for storage or you were paying for a larger screen size. Okay. The form factor was the same. With the 7, all of a sudden it was, okay, now we've got one camera, we've got a phone, we've got an iPhone 7 that has a single camera lens on it. And then we have an iPhone 7 Plus, which has which has 2 cameras on it and allows you to take portrait photos. And in my head, I'm like, I'm not getting, there's always only been one iPhone. And the iPhone has been whatever the high end was.
Right.
Okay, that to me, the high end one is always what the iPhone is.
Okay, gotcha.
I went with the bigger iPhone, but what was really funny is, so remember in 2015, I joined the iPhone upgrade program with the 6S, and I remember in the fall of 2016 when they announced the 7. Everyone that had it was like, oh, this is great. I'm going to go. I'm in the iPhone upgrade program. I'm going to jump to the new one. And the pre-order day came, and this happened with everybody. Anyone that was in the iPhone upgrade program, you were just treated like any other customer. So it was a first come first serve thing, and then it became and it was like, wait a minute, wait. I'm in your program, and you're telling me that the phone that I want I can't get. Like, what is the point of me paying? And I internally I was this, but the rest of the internet was outraged for me. So it was like, I'm not going to add to this. Like, yeah, it sucks. But keep in mind, when I'm saying all this stuff, I'm very much aware that it is a phone. It is, well.
Oh yeah, no, but
hang on. I just want to come back to this. I'm just making sure everyone knows that I'm well aware of what I'm buying.
Right. Yeah.
So, but Apple, to their credit, they heard the internet, and they sent emails out to everyone that was in the iPhone upgrade program, and they said, okay, here is your link. Tell us what you want.
Gotcha.
And so I was able to place an order for the iPhone 7 Plus, and I was able to pick it up on launch day. I had to go to a store. They couldn't ship it. I could go to the store and pick it up on launch day. And all was right with the world. And after that, they implemented a procedure where if you were in the iPhone upgrade program, you could like pre-order. And the rest is kind of history. So after that little hiccup going from 2015 to 2016, like clockwork, it's been, here's the iPhone announcement. Here's when I can pre-order. Here's my pre-order day. I'm getting the newest one. The only time I didn't jump for the newest one, and I think this is the only other time we've really talked about the iPhone on here, was in 2017, they launched the iPhone 8 and the iPhone 10. And I remember coming on the show with you and Steve, and we kind of talked about like the design language of it and how the notch.
Oh, yes, I remember. Yeah, I remember this now. Yeah.
Okay, so that I didn't. That's the only time I went with the 8 Plus. I did not get a 10, because I couldn't at the time. I think I found my Facebook posts about it, and obviously there's the podcast that I recorded with you and Steve, but I said that the 10 looks like a device that is full of design compromises. It's like this is what we want, but this is the best way we know how to do it, and it didn't match what I thought Apple was. So I went with the 8, and then after that I went with the 10s. I abandoned the home button. I went with 10s, and I went with FaceTime in 2018. And then 2019, that's when they released the Pros. And I've always had a Pro since then, because like I said, there's the high end, the phone. I don't even want to call it a phone anymore. The device that does the most is the one that I consider to be the iPhone. Everything else is like, this is for, and this makes me sound arrogant or bad, but it's for mass market appeal.
Well, yeah, it's for like, so I think it's MKBHD.
I don't know how to say that.
Well, no, I know what you're trying to say, and I'm going to kind of whatever. I think it's MKBHD that says, I think it's Marquez Brownlee that says, there's the iPhone, and then there's the iPhone for everybody, and then there's the enthusiast's iPhone. The iPhone 12 Pro, 13 Pro, the iPhone Pro Max models, those are the enthusiast models for people that are in the tech world, that like all the techie stuff, that like all the bigger screens, whatever else. Whereas the regular iPhone 12, 12 mini, or 13 or whatever is for the general audience. I think that's usually how he says it is. The bigger, most expensive, most has every feature ever is for the enthusiast of the phone.
I agree with that. So I know that I don't need to upgrade every year, and my wife and I make a running joke about it. Like 6 months into owning a new phone, I'm like, I don't know if I necessarily need to upgrade. And my wife gives me this side eye. She's like, why are we having this conversation? You're just going to get whatever they announce. And I don't want to say it. Maybe I'm a sucker, but I know I'm a sucker. Okay, at least there's always something that they throw out that makes me go, I can't not upgrade. And I can't, but I mean, I don't know when we want to that. That's kind of my history with the iPhone. I fell in love with the device. There's a myriad of reasons why I like Apple products. I love the ecosystem. I know a lot of people just don't care for the Apple products because of how they treat, I'll say, the prosumer experience of the device. But to me, those limitations that they place on their products free me up to actually enjoy the product. I am a notorious tinkerer, And if there's a setting that I can mess with, I will mess with it until it isn't any fun anymore.
Oh no, that's not good.
And so the fact that my friends are like, oh, macOS 10 doesn't let you do this thing with terminal, and I'm like, I don't use terminal. Like I don't I know that I can, but I don't need to do that. And or it's like the Android phones. Oh, you can do custom fonts or this other stuff, and it's like I don't need that. Like I don't want that. And now there's you get people that are like me where it's like I'm diehard Apple. This is all that it's going to be. But there was a period of time in like 2015 to 2010 to 2012, I found myself in this really weird, I'll say fortunate spot where I was able to try out two other phones. Okay. I put aside my iPhone 4S and I tried a Windows Phone 7.
Okay.
And if that phone was still around, for me, the pinnacle of phones goes iPhone, Windows Phone 7, Android. And so I love the on a desktop environment, the Metro UI is garbage. Absolute garbage. Hate it. Phone, it was refreshing. It looked great. It felt great to use. So I played around with that for a little bit and it was great. And it even had this really cool feature at the time for 2010 because it was an OLED display. It had a nightstand mode, which we'll come back to this in a second. Yep. But it had a nightstand mode. You charged it, you put it on its side, and it showed you the clock.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. This was 14 years ago, folks.
Yep.
So that was really cool. It had live tiles. Like the apps weren't like app icons. They were the app was a tile. So like all the fancy widgets that you see on Android and on the iPhone now, that's what the apps were, just widgets on the Windows Phone 7. They were just live tiles that updated in real time. Amazing. And it, like I said, it just felt good to use. I mean, you could change the colors of the squares it was all the same colors. So like blue, red, yellow, whatever you wanted to make it. And then, so I messed around with that for a little bit. And then I found myself going, okay, I want to try. I had some friends that were like, you don't know. You don't, all you've ever had was an iPhone. You don't know. You can't have this conversation. I'm like, okay, fine.
Peer pressure is a bitch.
But it wasn't even peer pressure. It was more of a flex on my part because I was arrogant. I was like, okay, fine. I'm going to go drop money on an Android phone I don't even care for so that you guys can get off my back. But here's the thing with Android phones that I've never cared for. I do not like Samsung phones. If I was ever going to buy an Android phone ever again, it would be a Google Pixel. And the reason for that is I don't like skinned phones. I cannot stand a phone that it's Android, but it's skinned.
Right, yeah, because Samsung puts their
crap over top of it. I don't even know what it is. I don't even know what it is. So what at the time there was Samsung made, it was just stock Google phone. It was the Nexus devices.
Yep.
So I got a Nexus S, it was a Galaxy or Nexus S. Anyways, I went and bought one of those at Best Buy because it was like, get it for $100. I was like, okay, fine. I'll go and try this damn thing out. I got it and it was stock Android. So I was like, okay, there's no frills, no nothing. Like this is just how it's going to be. And my experience with that device from like a hardware thing was horrid. I picked it up and I got it on like a Friday and I went into work on a Saturday, and I took it off the charger at 8 a.m. I got to work, and the damn thing was already down 50%, and I'd only driven for like an hour, not even an hour. It was already down 50% battery. And so I'm like, okay, well, maybe it's because it's new and I'm doing something wrong with it. So I plug it in to charge. I plug it into charge, and I didn't have a piddly ass little like slow. I had like a 2 amp charger that I use for my iPads or for my iPad. And that thing, it was on the charger all day and it never got back to 100%.
God, that's bad.
What ended up happening was something was wrong with the device. And long story short, and I did a number of things. I turned it off. I did like force restarts. I reset the damn thing. I pulled the battery out because that was a thing that you could do at the time. And I reseated the battery and put it back in, thinking that's all it needed. And long story short, I ended up returning it and getting a different model, and it was fine. The second one was fine. It held a charge like it was supposed to, but I had gone, being an iPhone user, I went to Windows Phone 7. Windows Phone 7 was different enough from the iPhone that it was refreshing. The stock Android experience, I found to be too similar to what iOS was, that I found, but not enough that I found it frustrating. So at that point, I was like, you know what? I'm done with this. I've done it. I played with it. I kept it for a few months. I played with it. I used it as my main driver. I did not have an iPhone at the time. Like it was like, I'm going to give up my 4S, and I will, when I order my 5, that's when I will get rid of this. So that was 14 years ago now. But like I said, I can't do the Samsung phones because I don't believe in skinning a device. Like, I don't care that you didn't make the OS. You didn't make this. You put lipstick on a pig and threw it out the door. That is my opinion of Samsung phones.
On that note, I've since he's been talking, folks, I've muted myself and I've been searching to figure it out. Samsung's operating system is One UI. So the One UI skin on top of Google's Android. I don't remember enough. And this is so stupid, and I'm pretty sure the Android phones copied this because I think iPhone did it first. Because like I said earlier in the episode, iPhone 3GS was the last one I ever had. And the one thing I absolutely loved about the iPhones back then, and this is, again, folks, we understand. We are being stupid tech nerds and stupid idiots and geeks and whatever. That's the whole point of the Geekcast Radio show, the Geekcast Radio Network. My favorite thing about the iPhone 3GS was the camera shutter looked like the James Bond logo, just doing the spy thing. That was my favorite thing about and just ever since then, like, I think that's the only thing I remember from the Samsung Galaxy S9 that I had, other than the fact that it was purple. Because by that time I had so for me, like, not even continuing on with history or whatever, but like, when I went to get the iPhone in 2007, 2008, iPhone 3GS, whichever one, I forget. I don't know if I had. I think I. Whatever. Whenever.
The 3GS was 9.
9, yeah.
It was 8.
3G. Okay, yeah, okay. Yeah. I think I had 2 of them at one point, but those are the only 2 I ever had. Was the 3 line. I never had anything above the 3 line, and the only reason why I got it was because I wanted, number one, the camera that they had. And number 2, I had already been using iTunes. I've been using iTunes on Windows since 2005, and I had back then, I still have the whole music library now. I have probably over, I don't know, I want to say close to $10,000 worth of music purchased from iTunes, because $1.29 download times 3,000 songs, That adds up. And then I've got videos, so I've got TV shows, I've got movies on iTunes still. So I still use, to this day, I still check iTunes to see if anyone's left us reviews on iTunes for the podcast. Like, just show what we're doing right now. I still check that every once in a while. I still use iTunes. Like you said earlier in the show, iTunes, one of the biggest features that Steve was selling us on was you know that giant CD collection or that giant CD tower you have? You can take them all and just shove them into the computer and have them in iTunes. You can have your music, but you can have it on your computer, so you don't have to keep, switching out the same 6 CDs in your 6 CD changer from 1997. So I have no hate towards Apple, towards iPhone, towards whatever. I love it. It's just at the time of life that I was going through in 2008, 9, 10, 11, 12, whatever it was, I ended up going back to dumb phones. And then, like I said earlier in the show, I went to the Samsung, and I want actual Google Android, and yeah, you were absolutely right. Pixels are the way to go. I'm waiting probably one more generation. And I know you said you don't like foldables. My biggest thing why I eventually want a folding phone is because, I forget what the screen, I think it's it was 7 Pro, isn't it 6.7 or 6.8? Whatever the screen size of this thing is, I can see my comics on here for the pull bag. I can read them just fine. The guided view works and everything else. But that doesn't work the same as it used to on my computer because Amazon is dumb and they got rid of the Comixology website, and the way they do it now is just, that's a whole other whatever. But the reason why I want a folding phone at some point is so I can read comics on a slightly larger screen other than my monitor, because like I said, the Amazon website does them stupid and it's not the correct way to do it. But I mean, yeah, I'm looking at all these designs you've talked about. I have right now, I have 3 tabs open: 4S, 6, and 7 Plus, and I'm looking at these designs and I'm just like, yeah, that shiny metal. It wasn't metal probably, but the shiny metal look
metal.
of the. Oh, it was
metal. Yes, the iPhones have always been metal and glass.
Okay.
Oh, no. Wait. Sorry. Someone's going to yell at me. Maybe. The 3G and the 3GS were plastic and
were plastic.
We're plastic. The first iPhone and the iPhone 4 and later, they were all aluminum and glass, and then stainless steel and glass, and now titanium and glass.
Titanium glass, yeah. So I'm looking at the 4S, like I said, the 6, and then the 7 Plus, and I'm just like, I think out of the 3 designs, I wish they kept the more glossy look of the 4S's back on the future ones, because I'm looking at the 7 Plus and I'm like, that's matte black.
Now this is where we kind of get into so that's the other thing. We can get into the design of the iPhone, because it kind of leads into one of the other things that was on your script, which was about the design language is kind of settled, right? Yeah. But I feel like, again, that's something that makes it that I appreciate. Okay. They aren't out there trying to reinvent the wheel every year. It's right. So unlike other manufacturers, they change the design. They add things like, okay, now the edges are curved and there's notifications in the edge of the glass, or Android. I don't know if Samsung did this, but I know Google did. You can squeeze the phone now. Okay, fine. Yeah. That's a thing, I guess, that people want to be able to do. But here's the thing. I have with my family. I'm the tech guy in my family. Okay, when there is a tech problem, my family calls me, and I have this rule with my family, which is you buy what I tell you to buy, and I will help you. If you buy something that I did not tell you to buy, you are on your own. Yep. And I have stuck by that my entire adult life. And to Apple's credit, with the iPhone, my family they all have iPhones, and I'm able to help all of them regardless of which iPhone they have, because fundamentally it's the same device. So I'm able to help them out and figure something out. They didn't change something here to to try to sell something to somebody, or to sell another couple million phones, or I don't know. I appreciate that the design language isn't refreshed every year. We had so it kind of it's this weird thing, right? Where maybe I'm barking up the wrong tree here, but the thing that I can think of right now off the top of my head is like Apple got a lot of flack, or gets a lot of flack, for being the last one to switch to USB-C for charging. Okay.
Right. Gotcha.
But let's look at something here. All right. So the very first iPhone had a 30-pin dock connector, which is the exact same thing that the iPod had, which was one of the highest selling consumer products ever released. Right.
Right.
That was dropped with the iPhone. I think it was the 5. No, it was the 5. This is really bad. I want to say it could have been it was somewhere between the 4S and the 5S. It was dropped in favor of Lightning, which was a huge deal. Huge deal. Because the 30-pin connector had been around since 2001, and now we're in 2010, 2011. So you just spent 10 years with a 30-pin connector. Yep. How many cell phones in that 10-year span came out that all had their own different charging cable, like USB-C mini, USB-A, USB? I don't even know what different. I can't even tell you all the different names of USB-C cables there are. I know that I can identify them. I can't tell you the names. If I see them, I know the difference. I can't tell you the difference between a USB mini cable and a USB micro cable. Like in my head, I don't, without seeing them physically, I don't know which one's which, but there's a difference, right? So, and then they went from Lightning, it went another 13 years, we'll say, to USB-C. Again, Android devices, cell phones, any number of consumer electronics devices was whatever USB port they felt like putting in the damn thing that they could get a bargain on. Okay. Right. Like meanwhile, in 24 years, there had been 3 Apple power cords. Like, and Apple's the one that gets shit on because they're the ones that they're the king of the hill, but you've really only had to change 3 cables in the entire span of a product cycle. So it's that thing where it's like, my family runs into problems with the iPhone when they are forced to do stupid stuff like change from Lightning cables to USB-C cables. Because now my parents are in the unfortunate spot where some of their stuff uses USB-C and some of their stuff uses the Lightning cable. And their stuff still works. And eventually that'll go away as they upgrade their phones. Everything, I think it's just their phones that are stuck on Lightning cables because they don't upgrade like I do, obviously. But it's like I like the design language being consistent. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. Like refinement is fine with me. Making something that is tried and true better is, I don't want to say it's fine. It's like perfect for me. Like you didn't need to reinvent. You don't need to reinvent the wheel to sell me a product. So I don't mind that they, the home button went away in 20. I think it went away somewhere in like 2017. It's still on the iPhone SE, but like again, that's 10 years with a device that had a home button. That's a design language that you picked up any iPhone, you knew how to use it. So now we're almost to 10 years with iPhones without home buttons, and everybody knows how to use that. It doesn't change. I don't have to re-educate my parents every time they get a new phone. It's literally like I can order my parents a new phone. I've done this. I can order them a new phone and I just tell them, set your old phone next to your new one and follow the instructions on the screen and wait 30 minutes. Boom. It works. Everything's fine. And all they got was a new device and everything looks and functions the exact same way. It's not, they don't have to spend any time learning how to use it again. None of that stuff. And I appreciate that. But at the same time, and I will admit, this is where things get a little like, I kind of like get mad at myself. Like, why do I upgrade every year? Why do I do this?
Well, we'll get into that, but
Well, I'm just saying, like, I get excited for the phone or the new device, and I get it, and I get the phone out of the device and I set it up and I play with it for about 5 minutes and then gone. Like I've got a new phone for another year.
Yep.
So the fix, the endorphin fix, is very short.
Well, I think as we've been doing the podcast, I have 3 different tabs open up in Chrome. I've got 3 different Google tabs. I've got one for specifically because this is going to be my little gripe here, because I wish more phones would do this, but some don't. I've got specifically the iPhone 14 Pro purple. I will explain that in a moment, but everyone should know why. Besides the fact that I'm all about the purple. iPhone 15 Pro and iPhone 16 Pro. Now, we will talk about the 15 and 16 later, but I wanted to bring up the 14 because, number one, it's the dark purple. It's Steve Jobs' favorite color. Dark purple is my favorite color, yada, 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 whatever. But my thing is, when they changed the cameras and they upgraded the cameras, the corner, that's not, like... When I see the Google, I'm going to say the 6 and the 7 too, but specifically when I saw the 6, I was like, that's the way you do a camera. You do it as a camera bar. You don't do it as a camera block or whatever the heck Apple calls their camera array here on the back of the phone. Because, and I know everyone's going to say this, everyone's going to bring it, oh my god, it wobbles. Well, half the time, most of us, 90% of us maybe, I don't know if you're like this, you can say if you are or you're not, most of us are going to keep our phones in a case to keep it protected. So really, technically, wobbling on the table isn't going to matter.
So I just want to correct something here. The camera bump that you are talking about with the 14 has been around since the iPhone 12.
7? 12, yeah.
12. Well,
yeah,
the bump, okay, the bump first showed up on the 6. What you're talking about, the three camera array, like the square, that has been around since the iPhone I want to say 12 in 2019.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, like, again, for me, it's not like, okay, we've seen all these phones.
I'm trying to see what the complaint is here, because I get that the phone wobbles, but if you're going to come at me with the phone wobbles if that's someone's complaint about a phone,
no,
find something else, man.
Yeah, no, I agree. No. But we're talking about design language and change or not change and being streamlined. So when Google upgraded and did the whole new design, like they needed to do something with the Pixel, because the Pixel, like I think and Steve used to have a 4XL, and I was like, ooh, 4XL. Let me take a look. I never actually had a 4XL, but so my point is about the design language is, yes, technically I agree. The phone companies should keep most of it the same. Once they do a change, like you said, the new camera array happened around the 12. Okay, so we've had that for the 12. So 5 year. When did the 12 come out? Was it 2019? Okay, so we've had this camera array on the iPhone for the last 5 years. When I saw what Google did with the 6 Pro and the camera bar versus the camera array or corner or whatever you want to call it, I was like, oh, that looks like something more like that I would want to do. And now that I've upgraded to the next one up from the 6 to the 7, I don't like the camera bar as much on the 7. I think the 6 one looks better, but the design language of change, of sometimes you have to do a change and then people will get used to it. And then, yeah, technically you're right. Absolutely, I agree with you. Keep it as simple as possible, but maybe like do subtle changes, or like what they're doing now, I guess, with this new quote button that they're not calling a button, but we'll talk about that afterwards. I don't know. my main gripe is I want to look at Apple, and I want a design on an iPhone that is going to make me come back to them. Like, that's the only that, like, you know what I mean? Like,
okay, so I get what you're saying.
Okay.
But so look at it this way, though. All right, so every smartphone,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, just gonna call this out. The show Black Mirror, everyone knows where that comes from, right? It's literally the cell phone. It's the front glass of a cell. Every smartphone on the market is a Black Mirror. All from the front, they are all just black slabs. If you put one down next to another one, if you're not an enthusiast, you will off black screen off. Mm-hmm. You would be hard pressed to tell which one is the next one over, right? Mm-hmm. So you have to look. The back side of the phone is where the marketing comes into play,
right?
Okay,
gotcha.
So I think what it is there is the camera bump, which is what I call it, and so for other people call it too. That to me, the camera bump is what identifies a phone as an iPhone. So
gotcha.
Or that is how you can, like, one phone enthusiast can identify another phone enthusiast or another person's phone is by the camera bump. So that's and I feel like that's why they're not, because if you put a case on an iPhone, you cover up the Apple logo. Unless you put a clear one on there, you cover up the Apple logo. So what's the only thing that the phone has to differentiate itself, which is
it's the camera bump.
It's the camera. It's the way that the camera is arranged. So if everyone all of a sudden decides to, now don't get me wrong, I am not the biggest fan of the camera, the way the cameras are arranged. I wish it was more like the Pixel. I wish it was a bar across the back. But there's other things about the iPhone that I wish were there. I wish Touch ID was in the Apple logo on the back side of the phone. Why it's not there?
That would be amazing.
I have no idea why it's not there. Perfect placement. But it's that's not what they chose to do, and so it's like that's just what I have to live with if this is going to be my device of choice. But I think at this point it's more of it's an identification marker. It's the Apple logo without it being an actual Apple logo, because even the lesser phones, the 12, the 12 plus, the mass market phone for everybody, they also have a camera bump on them, and they are very uniquely iPhone camera bumps. And so I think it's kind of like Android has the 3 down the side. Like or not Android, Samsung has the 3 down the side. That's how you identify like a Samsung phone. And Google has decided, okay, we're going to do 3, horizontally across. And Apple decided to make a stovetop.
Yeah, so that's what it is.
I mean, you've got your studio apartment stovetop. You've got your heat pad. What is it? The heat plate for the iPhones, and then you've got your Viking stovetop oven top for the iPhone Pros. Like, honestly, at this point, that is just the design language of the phone to identify it as a brand. So to shake that up causes it's a fundamental thing that I think would come with another mass shakeup. But at this point in phone design in general, and again, this is one of those places where I praise Apple for towing the line, and they get knocked for it, which is fine because people aren't wrong. But they can just, you can only make a slab of glass look so much like a slab of glass. Like you can't. We've already reached the point where they're Star Trek pads. You can't. You can't get them much, but so for them to and again, looking at it from like I'm not making excuses. I'm not trying to cheerlead for them or anything, but you got to look at it like I tend to step back and look at it from a business standpoint, which is okay. They've refined this build process, this manufacturing process over and over and over again, and so all they have to do is keep changing the internals, but meanwhile, manufacturing the phone keeps costing less and less and less. So the margins get, while they're already astronomical on an iPhone, they get higher and higher and higher because they're not changing the design every freaking year. So whereas you see companies like Samsung and I'm sorry, but I honestly believe Samsung and Google pull out the gimmicks that they pull because they are trying to find a way to combat the sales number of the iPhone. Like you got to look at it like, okay, is the iPhone a bad product because they failed to, like, they don't have to change anything about it and it still sells. Meanwhile, everybody else is like throwing the kitchen sink into a phone and hoping that it sells, and whether it does or not, who knows? Like I've always, the entire time I've been with an iPhone thing, it's like I've always heard Android's had that for years. Android's had that feature for years. Android's had all this stuff, and it's like, that's great. I'm glad you guys have had that, but you know what? I didn't need that feature. There's a chance that Apple probably put that feature in the phone and I don't even use it. And if it's there, it's probably implemented in such a way that it's, I'm sorry, frankly, better. Like they're not first. Apple doesn't want, I can't remember the iPod. Apple wasn't even first with the iPod. I will say they were first with the iPhone, but that was the last time I think they were first. Like and the not even with the watch. I mean, they kind of they came in the iPad. Okay. Sorry, I'm diluting everything. Definitively, the phone was the first time they came into a market and just blew it down. Okay. Yep. Everything else was, we're not first, but we're going to make the experience. It, again, not selling a product. We're going to make the experience of using this device better.
Yeah.
And to that end, I can't. And maybe that's what they want, and maybe that's why I'm a sucker and I'm brainwashed, because like I have a Mac that has, I just upgraded all my stuff this year. I've got a brand new phone. I got a brand new watch. I bought a brand new Mac that has way more horsepower than I'm ever going to use. I bought an iPad that has way more horsepower in it than my Mac that I bought this year has in it that I'm ever going to use. My phone has way more horsepower in it than either of those devices. I don't do anything with them. I know that. You know what it is though? My phone connects to my computer and I can text people on my computer and the text messages go out on my phone and my notifications come to my watch. And then, you know what, the comics that I download on my Mac, they show up on my iPad for me for me to read, and I don't have to, it's that people forgot about it, but it's a Mac. It just works. Like
it's the connective tissue. It's the ecosystem. It's the ecosystem that everything just works because it's Apple and you have Apple everything.
And I do. And I 100% agree with that, but that's also why, like, I know that I am thoroughly entrenched in that ecosystem, and I won't disagree with you when you go like, well, Android lets me do this, and I feel like that's great. I'm like, well, that's cool.
See, I subscribe to the whole thing of, there are a lot of things that Android has done and will do that come first, that are first, that Apple may look at and make their own version of at some point down the line, because like you have said, they're not trying to be first anymore with the things. But like, I don't know, man. I don't look at my phone and say, oh, Android has all this, but iPhone doesn't. I don't know. I don't know.
So let me tell you one interesting feature that I'm trying to figure out. And again, it's been 14 years, but I had an Android phone in when I worked for Christie Digital. I had an Android phone for a year and a half as my company phone. Does Android have visual voicemail?
You mean like you can see the The text of like the
No, not transcription. My voicemails show up like an email box, and I can select which one I want to listen to.
yeah.
I've never seen it on an Android phone.
Hang on a second. I mean,
I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I just didn't see it. In 2017 when I had an Android phone, it didn't have visual voicemail on it, and I'm like, how does Android not have visual voicemail on it in 2017?
I just put it in Messenger for you.
Let's see what this is.
Easiest way. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that's visual voicemail because I can listen to it, I can read the transcription, and I can share it, delete it.
Okay,
Video call.
Okay, that must be, at least it wasn't on the Galaxy phone that I had, so maybe maybe they just added it or something, I don't know.
Well, I've had it since, well,
either way,
yeah.
I always thought that was that's one of the nifty little features. I thought that I always heard that they brought it over from Japan, but they build it as, we made it really easy to see your voicemail. I'm like, that's so I don't have to like log into anything. I don't have to call a phone number or like listen to voicemails in order. It's like, here's your voicemails. They're arranged here like they're emails, and you can listen to the ones that you want or just delete them.
Yep. Yeah, that's the thing. And it's funny you say that, calling in a number. Oh my God. Back in the Nokia 5120 and 51 whatever days and all that, back in the mid to late 90s, oh man, having to call your own phone number to get the voicemails. Oh God, yeah, no, visual voicemail has definitely been around for a while. I don't know how long it's been on Android off the top of my head, but every Android phone I've had since 2017 has had visual voicemail.
I just remember the one that I had for work. If I got a voicemail on it, I had to press 0 or something on the keypad to call.
Yeah, something like that.
To call into my voicemail, and then I had to put in a PIN. Like, it was so bad. I just had all my phone calls were just forwarded to my Windows, my iPhone. Like, just any phone call that got, because that honestly, I'll say that was really cool. Being able to forward a phone call on the Android device, just be like, yeah, someone send it to this phone number. That was really easy to do, and so that's what I did once I realized I couldn't get voicemails like conveniently. So, anyways, but that's besides the point. I don't know. I'm fine with the design language staying stuck, stale, whatever you want to call it. Like, because like I said, it's a slab of glass, man. What more do people want it to be? I don't want a foldable device. I can tell you that much right now. So I will stick with my slab until someone pries it from my cold dead hands.
Yeah. I think the thing with me is with the iPhone, and again, I haven't had an iPhone in my hands since 14, 15 years ago, but just looking at the design, the 15 Pro specifically, because we're going to get into the why you went from the 15 to the new one, like what's the new one have that the old one doesn't over last year, but just looking at the design, I think for me it's more of, I have this thing of centering, like people can't see this because it's audio, but like most of the time I use like if you look at the script that we like, the Geekcast Radio Network presents, there's the image of the logo, the old ass logo of the podcast on Geekcast Radio, and then you go to left. So I don't know. It's I like center stuff. I like stuff that's in the middle of the thing. So it, like with the pixels where you have the bar horizontally over the thing,
symmetry.
Yeah, the symmetry of it all. I think that's my only gripe about, like, in the long run, as long as they're good cameras, it really doesn't matter. Because, like I already said, you're going to put it in some sort of Apple clear case or something, or what, I don't know, whatever. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm a sucker for symmetry. That's the other reason why I also like Apple products, is that they, at the time, a lot of Apple products subscribe to the golden rule for aesthetics. But in the back of the iPhone does not subscribe to that at all. But it at the end of the day, it's one of those things where you look at it and go, you have to, like, you can make complaints about just about anything, but then at the end of it, you have to step back and go, how do I actually use this? Right? Do I grab my phone? How often do I just stare at the back of my phone? I don't stare at the back of my phone. There's nothing there for me to look at. I look at the front of my phone. I can't see the camera array. As long as everything looks symmetrical from the front, I don't care what the back looks like. It's not just like a knock towards you. Like this type of thing is a problem, like with everything, right? So, for example, one of the other ones I can think of off the top of my head is TVs. All right, this is a little tangent here, but OLED panels. I did a lot of research on OLED panels before I bought my first one. I researched them for about 4 years before I bought my first one in 2019. But one of the things I learned, like when I was doing my research, is I'm reading like ratings.com and digital trends, and some other people like talk about color and all this other like brightness and stuff like that. And then they were talking about like a lot of these websites were like, oh, we put up a grayscale test pattern, and the panel struggles to show you 0 to 5% gray. So
yeah,
I'm sorry. So it struggles with the not 0, because OLED can show you 0. So the first 4% of the grayscale, the panel struggles to show you. Okay. Thanks for putting that in my head when I'm trying to make an informed decision. But 2, I don't look at test patterns when I'm watching something. Like you're not going to notice that it can't handle like 4% of gray.
Yeah.
There's another 96% of gray that it can show you. Like,
yeah.
So just because like it's like, yeah, and it's one of those things you have to take a step back. Everyone should take a step back and like look at how you interact with something, how you use something. So it's like, yeah, that flaw is there, but I'm not looking at test patterns. I'm watching YouTube videos and movies, and like I'm not worried about the fact that it can't show me like the last 4% of gray before it turns to complete black. I can't see that on a daily basis. So like when it bothers me that the lenses, they're not symmetrical with the phone, but there's everything in the bump is symmetrical to itself. So it's, but again, like I said, when I went down this tangent, I don't look at the back of my phone, man. Like you said, all I want is good cameras that I can point it at and click a button and it takes a picture.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me specific, I agree with what you're saying. I absolutely agree, and you're right. I think for me, it's like with the 7 here, with the 7 Pro here, it's a flat, since I have it in a case, it's flat. Like there's no. Like, I can't feel the camera bump that's on the back of the 7 Pro when it's in the case. And you're right. You're not really looking at the back of your phone. Like, maybe when you're cleaning the lenses, like if you're wiping it off or something, absolutely. But again, it's one of those things where I think in the way they present the product and the way they advertise the product, I think that they, like, I know they do this whole visual thing of the lenses pop out at the screen sometimes when they do when they do the events, when they're trying to show off the new thing. And that's cool and all, but it I don't know. It's just design. It's not the worst designed phone ever. There have been plenty of other phones that have worse design than this. And like you said, the stovetop all aligns, except I wish there was a fourth. I think this is so stupid. They should add a fourth camera to that bump.
Yeah, I'm okay. Like I said, you know what's even funnier? You know what's funnier about the bump is it's been on the phone since 2019, and it's gradually gotten bigger every year. But here's the thing: I never noticed.
Really?
I upgrade every year. I never noticed. And you know what's funny? I take the phones out of, like, I would get the new phone, I would get the old phone out of the case, and I look at it. I look at the difference in like the colors, because like there was every year they had a black phone, but it was like space gray, and then there was like the next year it'd be space gray again, but it's a slightly different like tint, or there was black, and then there was slate, and like whatever the just the darker color phone was. I would always just compare the colors. So I get the phone out of the new phone out of the box, and I get my old phone out of the case, and I'm like, okay, here's last year's black, and here's this year's black, and they're definitely not the same color, but I never bothered to be like, oh, the bump got bigger. Like I just, that wasn't a thing for me. And I keep all my boxes. Like I've definitely noticed, like looking at all the boxes, like, yeah, I can see that the camera bump got bigger when I see like side by side, like videos or photos of like, obviously the camera bump like expanding across the back of the phone. Yeah, I see that it gets bigger, but it's like, that's just physics, man. Like when you put bigger lenses and sensors in a phone, like you have to have space for that stuff. So it's just one of those things where it's like, yeah, but I honestly, I never noticed. And as far as like the rocking goes, my phones do rock, but I don't ever like use my phone. Like I don't want to say I don't ever use it. Like 5% of the time I use my phone is like flat on a surface. Like 95% of the time it's in my hand. So I don't really notice it rocking too much. And then again, that also depends on the case you put on the phone, right? So if I had an OtterBox on my phone, it's not going to rock because it's an Otter case. Like that completely changes the profile of the device. But I always buy Apple cases every year. I order a phone and I order an Apple case and I slap that on there, and then it stays in there. It lives in there for a year. So the Apple cases are usually like thin because I don't want a big bulky case. So, and they just have a single cutout for the like the bump is still very much there. So it does, like I'm sitting here on my desk and yeah, the phone still rocks, but like I said, 95% of the time, the phone's in my hand. I don't sit over it on my desk and type on it. But but whatever. That's, but just real quick though, because we're talking about design real quick, because I talked about the 6. The thing with the display on the 6, and this is very hard to articulate because one, it's very hard to find anyone that has a 6 anymore. But do you know, like, back before they used to have live demos of phones, like they would have, like you'd walk into the store and the dummy phone would be there and it would have like a sticker on the front of it of what the operating system looked like. So the 6, the display was pressed so far up to the glass on the 6 that there was no gap between the display and the glass, so it looked like a sticker. It was seamless, and I very much remember that. And it wasn't just my phone. I saw it on my wife's phone. I saw it on the display units in the store. It was the only time that the whole like idea of the phone just kind of like it looked like a slab. Like here's this. There was no gap. And with the 6S, they added in Force Touch, which was the pressure, the gimmick of the pressing harder on the glass and, putting force on it. And that obviously had to have a little bit of a gap between the display and the glass in order for that to work. And so that's been gone since then. So I'm like, man, they had like, I could only imagine what an iPhone 6 would look like with an OLED display. Like, I would love to see that, but I'll never get to see it.
That would be amazing. Yeah. No, the design, like, and I grabbed 2 images. I grabbed one image of the 15 and the 16 because I'm like, what's the difference in these overall for the design? And all as I can tell, that the difference is specifically the back of the phones. And again, I know we're not looking at the back of the phones, but like the rails and the way the camera bump is, it's just slightly different. But yeah, I mean, I like the iPhone design. I don't know.
And for me, all right, why did I upgrade from the 14 to the 15, or even the 15 to the 16. So
the 15 to the 16. So if the 15 Pro has everything you want in a phone, it does everything you need it to do. It takes the pictures that you wanted to take. If you take I don't know if you're a picture person, if you're always taking pictures, if you're not, if you're watching stuff on the phone, if the screen is as good as you want it to be, then what's the difference for you to upgrade to the next one? Like, what did they do with the 16 that made you want it now over the 15? Outside of it's the yearly, I just have to upgrade.
60 to 70% of it, I have to do it. Listen, I wish I could break the cycle. I thought last year for sure.
I'm not trying to help you break this.
No.
Okay.
I'm just saying, like, I wish I could break the cycle. I thought last year I might have broken the cycle because last year was the first year since the first iPhone that I did not get one on launch day. I got the 15 the Monday after they came out. But that's a long story.
Okay.
But so I thought, I missed launch day and the world didn't fall apart. Who would have known? So I thought maybe I can just not do the 16. But the closer it got to like the 16 launching, I just knew there was no way I wasn't going to do that. My wife even knew there was no way I wasn't going to do that. But for me, I think it's just kind of like my yearly tradition. It's like the one piece of tech I can afford to just keep fresh, like around me, like my iPad. The last time I got an iPad was 2018. I just got an M4 one this spring, so like that was pretty long. And then before that, I had my MacBook was from 2017, and I just traded it up for an M3 like this year. So like I hold on to like the more expensive stuff, but the iPhone for me is so cheap, and upgrading annually, I think, saves me like a lot of like hassle from like feeling a lot of like the stuff that like long-term customers feel with cell phones. Like I don't have to feel the wear on the battery. I don't have to feel like the operating system like slowing down or getting sluggish. I don't have to worry about new features not working that I might be interested in. There's just a number of things that I don't have to worry about. And that might be like kind of like a symptom of FOMO, but I don't have to worry about the device just like dying on me. Like it's just like I get a fresh device every year. It works for the next year, and it has the latest and greatest of everything on it. That said, I will 100% agree with everything that everyone has said about the 16, which is that it's been, and I don't really want to talk about this a whole lot, but it's been heavily marketed with Apple's AI features, the Apple Intelligence stuff. Yeah. Which isn't even on the phone.
Yeah, it's not even on the phone yet. It's not going to be on the. I think it's not going to be until like what, next
October.
April or something.
It's coming in October. Well, some of it's coming in 4 parts. The first part is in October. So like that to me was like, but I don't buy. I kind of buy something based off of what it does for me right now and not what it will do. Right. So, I thought that and I'm not even all that interested in Apple Intelligence because I don't care for what I've seen of AI so far. So again, that's not a conversation I want to have here. But yeah, this phone was like heavily marketed around that stuff, and it isn't even available out of the box. So it's like, okay, what did I buy this phone for? Well, it's the display got slightly larger. Okay, because I was thinking about going back to the larger phone, but I got to keep the smaller one and got a slightly bigger display. And I think that the new button that we can talk about or not talk about is what the action button. Well, I think it's what the action button should have been, but I also think it is the forebearer of what's coming next for the iPhone. And it was like, I want to have that. I want to be able to play with that before it becomes a thing on like everywhere, so I can learn how to use it and how it works. And I try to stay ahead of my family. That way I don't want my family to buy something that I don't have access to. Like I wouldn't want my mom to get this thing and me stay on like an old one and not be able to help her use it. You know what I'm saying? But like I don't have to worry about it. But I don't know. The other thing too, I think for me, and this is very much, what's the word? Superficial. I always got the black iPhone.
Gotcha.
Since they started introducing color, it was always black, always black. And with the iPhone 12, I got the green one. And
the forest green or the dark green one.
Yeah, whatever that one was. I got that one. And so I always get a case when I buy a phone, and then 6 months later I buy myself another case just to freshen it up a little bit. And I'll buy a different color. Well, with the green phone, superficial, I was like, what? Nothing else looks good with this. What am I? What? Like, yeah. It's just the little cutout in the back. No one freaking cares about it but me. And like I said earlier in this podcast, I don't look at the back of my phone, but I know.
Exactly.
I know. Like and so I'm just like, I'm going, green doesn't go with anything. So at that point I was like, you know what? I can't, I have to go back to getting black phones. I have to do it. But at the same time, with the pros, I don't like shiny stuff. I don't like chrome. Okay. I like matte finishes. Pros always had polished stainless steel bands around the outside.
Gotcha, yep.
Which I always hated, but hey, I put it in a case. So who notices? Nobody. But my Apple Watch, I always got an aluminum Apple Watch because I would have loved to have gotten a stainless steel Apple Watch, but I didn't want it polished. So always got aluminum because they're matte. And I could have gotten a regular iPhone because they're a matte aluminum, but no, I want the stainless steel thing. So I was very happy when the 15 got announced and they switched to titanium, and they did natural titanium because I love titanium.
Okay.
Love it. Like I think titanium is like my gold. Like I hate gold. I hate the color of gold. I love titanium. Like I almost bought like an Apple Watch Ultra, like the first generation one. I almost bought one of those because it was matte titanium. Like it I didn't even care. I didn't care about how big it was. I didn't care about that it was like super like high, like that it was made for outdoors and all this other crap. I was like, it's a titanium watch and it's matte. Like I want that. Mm-hmm. So when the 15 was announced and it was made out of titanium, that it was going to be made out of titanium, I was like, if they do a natural finish of titanium, that is what I'm getting. And so that's what I got. And I think one of the reasons also that I upgraded this year is because you don't know when Apple's going to drop a color. And so I was like, they did natural titanium again this year. And what was really weird is it's literally the same color. Remember how I said earlier, like the blacks were always slightly different versions of black? Like,
yep.
It's literally the same color of natural. If there's one complaint I have going from the 15 to the 16 is that the natural titanium color did not change. Like even the back glass was the same color back glass. Like they didn't even make it like a different color gray or anything like that. Like, but whatever. I think that's one of the reasons I grabbed it. It's like, okay, it's still brushed, or in this case, it's blasted titanium. It's not brushed. Like the 15 was brushed titanium. This one is blasted titanium, but it's a natural finish. And I'm like, I like that. And so who knows if they're going to have that next year. And if they don't have that next year, they don't have a color. Maybe I don't upgrade. Fat chance. But
hell will freeze over and I will stop podcasting if you don't upgrade next year.
But it's just I think honestly, superficially, that's one of the things. Like and because the gray goes with, I can get whatever color case I want to go with the gray phone, just like I can with a black phone. So it's like, it's just, again, it's not shiny. Like, yes, it's shiny, but it's not polished. Like it's not, the bands aren't polished, so I can use it without a case, and it looks really good without a case on it. And I've just always liked titanium. I think it's just this, it stems from one of my first watches was a Fossil watch made out of titanium. And at that point, it was like the most expensive thing I was ever able to buy myself. It was like $190 for a titanium watch. And I love that thing. I still have it. And I've bought a number of other Fossil titanium watches. And I've just, that material it's kind of like, I think it comes from comic books. Adamantium, titanium, vibranium.
Yep.
Like I'm 100% sure it literally stems from that. Like I have no need for titanium in my life. I don't do anything where titanium is like a thing where it's beneficial outside of its like weight reduction properties. But like I like the shade of natural titanium. I like that color of gray that it is, or silver if you want to call it that. Like I like it so much that I even switched. I used to get, for a while, I had a black MacBook and black iPads. This year when I upgraded everything, I got a silver MacBook, I got a silver iPad, and I just bought, I bought an Apple Watch Ultra 2 that is in the natural titanium color because I wanted everything to be silver or close to it. You know, like I don't know, I'm a sucker for aesthetics. I love polish. I like a really well-made product, and that's what the phone is. The phone has always felt that way to me.
So with the iPhone 16, and remind me because I don't remember, when did they introduce the action button? Was it the 14 or the 15?
15.
Okay. So on the 15, they introduced the action button. The action button is you can have it mapped to anything you want it to do. Like most people I know, I'm going to have it, one press and I can call my wife, or one press and I can call my mom or my dad or whatever, or one press and it opens the it's just that kind of thing. This year, for the 16, they add what they call camera control.
Yeah.
It's a button, people. It's a second, but I'm not complaining about the fact that it's a button. What I'm complaining about is they won't admit that it's a button. But it's a button for you to use. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no. I feel like that harkens back to, I'm going to sell you an experience.
Okay.
So yes, it's a button.
I can see that.
But what is it doing? It's controlling the camera. Therefore, it is camera control. And it is a button. I will not deny. I do not deny that. But honestly, it could have been. It could have been a little cooler than it actually is, I think.
What's your experience with it then?
I think it's pretty slick. And this is where I say, like, I think it's I'm just gonna say it. It's what the action button should have been, and I think it's like literally the future of what the iPhone is going to be.
Okay.
But I think it's going to get better. Because for example, the Apple, like the home button on the iPod or on the iPhone was a button for the longest time. And with the 7 and the 8 and the SE, the home button was no longer a button. It didn't click. It did not, it was taptic. It felt like you were pressing on it and it was clicking, but that circle, the home button, was not depressing in any way.
The way it used to.
So yeah. the trackpads on the MacBook, and even the Magic trackpad that Apple has, those don't click. It is a haptic feedback from the taptic motor in the MacBook. That the keypad does not move. It feels like it does. So the fact that this is a button, an actual button, rather than like a haptic thing, it throws me a little bit. Like, again, it feels like this is like, it's very much the first generation of this. And I feel like maybe they call it camera control because that's what it is, and it won't be a button forever. I feel like when they can figure it out, it will be. I imagine with this, I think the home. I think the sleep wake button and the volume up. I think every button on the iPhone within the next year or two is going to become a haptic press. It's going to be a solid state button. I think the camera control is the first step in that. And it was just, let's just kind of show the future of what this is going to be. And with something that everybody uses, which is the camera, will get you used to how this type of button works. And then next year, the sleep wake button will be touch sensitive as well. And you'll be able to manipulate other settings on the phone with it or something like that. Like, I just think it's like, I'm not defending them. It's dumb. It's a button. Someone could just literally call it a button and everyone would stop with they're not calling it a button. But I think, again, they're just trying to sell the experience, and all they care about is telling people about what it does. And all it does at this point in time,
not what it is. Yeah.
All it does at this point in time is control the camera, and it's actually pretty slick. It's kind of like using, like, I've messed around with it, and I think it's going to get better with like iOS 18.1. Because right now you can't set every setting from that capture button yet.
Right, gotcha.
You will be able to, but it is slick, and like it's touch sensitive, and it does have some taptic feedback because you can light press on it and it feels like you're clicking it, and then there's like a hard press where you're actually clicking it.
Gotcha.
And it's like, okay, you guys got halfway there. You couldn't have gone the whole way. So, but I think it's kind of like it's just the future of what's coming, because the rumors have been going around for a while that they're going to switch everything to solid state buttons, and everything will feel like it's clicking, but none of it's going to be clicking. And I think this is the first step in that. And like I said, I also think it's what the action button should have been. Like, the action button should have had like a touch thing on it. Like, I should have been able to like slide my thumb along it, maybe to like scroll down a website, or I don't know what you could have done with it, but it'll be interesting to see what they're able to do when the other buttons get this functionality.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so I think we've already answered the question that I have here. Do you ever see yourself not being an Apple user? We already know, folks. It's a no.
I have too much money. Too much money
yeah.
in Apple stuff, and I'm sorry.
Yeah, so
no one's ever going to tell me that it doesn't just work.
Don't no. I didn't want to do this because I wanted to throw you under the bus. Ew, an Apple. Yeah, no, this isn't like.
I didn't think you did.
Ew, Mike's got cooties because he.
So one of the things I always, in my early days of podcasting, one of the things I always wanted to try, but I could never do because I never podcasted with anybody else that had a Mac. Okay, so GarageBand.
Okay.
GarageBand is the software that I used whenever I was editing the podcasts that I produced. Well, with on the Mac, there was a program called iChat, and it was basically it was a way of using Instant Messenger without having to use AOL Instant Messenger. Right. Well, GarageBand and iChat would interface with each other, and keep in mind this was 2000. I got the computer. It could do this in 2004, and I was never able to do this. So this was back in 2004. GarageBand, you could start a voice chat with any number of people in iChat that had iChat, other Mac users that had iChat. You could start a voice call like we're doing right now, and you could launch GarageBand. And you could record that call, and every single participant was their own channel. This was in 2004. And
right,
like, iChat isn't a thing anymore. I think it might still do that with like iMessage right now, but I'm not entirely. I just never got it working. I found other ways of like doing my podcast. But I was like, man, podcasting would be so easy if everyone that I wanted to do this stupid show with could just had a Mac, because everyone would be on their own channel, and you could mix and do all the levels, and like this stuff just worked, man. Like I found ways of like achieving the same thing, but I had to use like a number of other apps and things like that. It was just like I never got to use anything. I never got to do a podcast with the simplicity that Apple had built into its ecosystem.
So funny you mentioned that. Okay, this is stuff. No, this is the stuff we have to talk about off air. But since Studio 2009 launched in 2020, when we launched June, I think we launched June 20th, 2020. So 6/20/20 or 6/20/2020. I wanted to do something different with this show, with Studio 2009. This is not Geekcasters. I'm getting confused now. Over on Studio 2009, I wanted to do something different. And I have had you were on one of them. You were episode 29, I believe. I had the comic book origins for the pull bag. So it's 30 questions all about reading comics, yada, yada, yada. Well, I've since expanded that into other areas. And two of the other areas are podcasting, listening to and producing them, and video game journeys. So we will talk about that later. Because that's going to be interesting. But yeah, I mean, overall, you got your, you spent your money. You made your choice. Like, same thing like with me. When I make a choice of something, I'm going to make that choice. I'm not going to go bet, like, what's a perfect use? Like, if wherever I want to go to dinner or wherever I want to go to lunch or whatever, like, if I want Dean's Milk over Walmart Great Value brand, like, you just make a choice and you stick with it. And that's cool. That's cool. Again, the whole point of this episode is why iPhone and your experiences with it. So do you have like a top 5 likes and dislikes from the 16?
Well, I'll tell you right now, like, you know how they said they add features that Androids had for a while, and I just don't use them or whatever. Like, the big thing with like iOS 18 was all the customization that you can do. Like, oh, you can color your icons, you can arrange your icons, all this. My stuff hasn't changed. I don't do any of that.
Okay.
In fact, you know what? I don't even have my wallpaper and my lock screen are black. Mm-hmm. Like, and they have been black. I don't have a wallpaper. I don't have any of that stuff on my phone. I haven't had it on my phone dude, I think the last time I had a wallpaper on my phone was 2013, maybe. Ever since then, it's just black. I don't need a picture behind it. I experiment. I put a color back there. I'll put up like a blue wallpaper or something, or I've got like a really cool wallpaper that changes with like the weather.
Right.
And so if it's raining, it shows like an animated rainstorm for like the first like 5 seconds when you unlock the phone. And you know what? I keep them on there, and about 5 minutes later, I'm like, nope, goodbye. Just go back. Yeah. Take me back to my black wallpaper. I don't need to see this. I don't care. I just honestly, I've been messing around with the camera more lately because I'm trying to get more out of the phone. Because I do kind of let the phone just take the picture. And I think for me, someone who's never had a point and shoot, I've never had a mirrorless camera. I've never had a digital camera, like never had one of those. The iPhone has always been my camera.
Right.
It takes great pictures as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
So, I've never had an issue with that. I've always said it has way more horsepower than I would ever need. I don't even game on it. I can't.
Okay.
I will put a game on the phone, even my iPad. I can't game on my iPad either. I will put a game on them and I will play it for about 10 minutes and then I will delete it. I can't play games with touch controls. I can't do, dude. I consume media on my phone and my iPad. I don't. Mm-mm.
Yeah, so you're listening to music or podcasts or whatever you listen to, and then you're watching TV shows and you're watching movies.
Well, that I don't do. I don't watch YouTube TV shows or movies on my phone or my iPad, sir. I'm sorry, but no, I watch YouTube. Well, I consume YouTube, but I'm just that's kind of that's more of me just joking around. But I don't know. It's I don't have any complaints because it's the iPhone. It's what I've known for. Almost 14 years? 15 years? No. Yeah. We're 17 years. We're 3 years from 20 years. So, okay. So it's the iPhone. It's to me, upgrading every year. It's been the same phone for 17 years. It's the biggest change came when they dropped skeuomorphism, which was a sad day.
Oh boy, what's that story?
No, it was just it. So you know what skeuomorphism is, right? Where it's like so it's a you. Okay, I'm probably going to be wrong here, but it's an oversimplification. It's when the graphical user interface mimics real world objects. So,
okay,
like iBooks, for example, when iBooks first launched, when skeuomorphism was still the design language, you opened up iBooks and it was an oak bookshelf. Like
gotcha.
you saw all of your books lined up on an oak bookshelf, and when they dropped all that, all of a sudden, as you just open up iBooks and it's just a blank screen that has a bunch of book icons on it. There's no personality to it. There's no flavor to it. The biggest travesty in the whole thing, and you'll probably love this or you'll hate this, but I always thought it was the coolest thing: the podcast app. So podcasts under skeuomorphism, when it showed a reel-to-reel player.
Mm-hmm.
So it had like the tape going around, and
right.
So when you hit play, the reel on the left side had all the tape on it, and the wheel on the right side had nothing on it. And when you hit play, the wheels spun, and slowly the wheel on the left got shorter, and the wheel on the right got bigger until the episode was over. Yeah. And when you hit like stop, the reels would stop and kind of like shake, because it was like an analog thing. It's like, oh, the motor stopped. And like you would see like the little arm, like the tension arms, like bob up and down on the tape. Like that's stuff that that's that flavor that just, you don't have to make something look this good.
Yep.
And they got rid of all that stuff, man. Like it kind of like, I remember like one of the things, like one an article I read that kind of changed the way that I viewed the iPhone. It was very early on. The way the iPhone functioned, and this was back before there was like multitasking or fast app switching or any of that other stuff that like everybody wanted out of the get-go. It was the iPhone became whatever you wanted it to be.
Right.
It turned into that. You want it to be a recording device. You opened up the recording device and there was a microphone there. You knew that you set it down and you were like, there was a microphone. It had the little recording needle on it that showed you like the volume levels of what you were recording. Like it became that. Like you opened up the Compass app. It looked like a compass. It became that thing. And now they just do too much.
or it doesn't do enough, because like you said, with the iBooks app, originally it had like, oh, it's this nice design background. It looks like it's on an actual oak bookshelf kind of thing. And then they took it. It's like they took the personality out of it.
They stripped. Now, don't get me wrong. I like the way that it looks now, but they tore the personality out of it. Because there was like there used to be like stuff like when the screen would drop down so you could see their notification, like the screen that was under that would like it had the green felt from a poker table is what was under the home screen. Like,
oh, that's so cool.
That's cool. Like you have a display that can show you whatever you want and make you feel anything, and you and this is not just Apple. This is everybody. This is because Google followed. I'll just say Android because Samsung is just a skin, right? But Android followed, Apple right off the cliff. Like, and they stripped all the personality out. I can't even think of like what the other. They were just the camera app, like looked like a camera, or like when you're recording a video, there was a little red light that turned on, like in the camera app when you're recording a video. Like it just, there was so much personality in the whole thing and it all just got stripped out of it. And that was going from like iOS, I think that was iOS 7 that they stripped all that stuff out of in favor of a flat UI, which has been the underlying principle of the whole thing since then, which I like, but you didn't need to do that for everything. But I get it. Yeah. It's a design language. You want one app to feel like the next. That way it's easy for everyone to figure out how to use something. And I get it. It was just really sad. And like, every time I look back on it, I'm like, man, it was so cool.
Yeah, but like you look, yeah, exactly. It was so cool. It was so fun. And the thing of it is you look, like you said earlier about the iBooks app. You open it up, you see your books, and they kind of look like they're on an oak bookshelf. I think that's a cool design language because you can do the same thing, like not iMovie, but like if you open iTunes on your iPhone, it should have like each type of media should be like, well, movies and TV you can have them display. Like it should look like, again, design language that is cool, features that look nice, features that make it feel more than just a phone.
Computer.
And like we said, computer?
Yeah, make it feel like make it feel like less of a computer.
Yeah, exactly. No more ones and zeros, Apple. Come on, let's go. What do you want from the iPhone design or the iPhone overall in the future? What is your next, like, what's the next thing for you other than just upgrading from year to year? Like, what do you want to see the iPhone do in the future?
This is just speculation and rumor from like the tech blogs. I want to see what this iPhone Air is going to be. Mm-hmm. I also am in my head, because keep in mind, I know that I don't need to upgrade every year, but I like to upgrade every year. The one thing that has kept me with the Pro line for as long as it has is the ProMotion display that the Pro line has, where it can go from like 24 hertz all the way up to 120 hertz. I like that. I can feel that. My wife can't look at my phone because it makes her sick. The regular iPhone is only 60 hertz, and she is totally fine with that. That's totally usable for her.
Yeah.
But I've heard that next year's iPhone, the ProMotion display is supposed to come to the regular iPhones. So like, I don't know, you just removed a feature of the Pro that I actively used, right? Because like I don't need all the cameras. I don't take that many photos. I'm not a photographer. So I think like if they do the 120 hertz display, I might be able to get a cheaper iPhone next year. I don't know. I know that like the gimmicky stuff that they've added, like the always on display that came with the iPhone 14, I don't use that. It's turned off on my phone. I would like to see the dynamic island used a lot better. It is still 3 years later a half-baked idea, and it's sad.
Huh. So they haven't updated anything with dynamic island?
So they have. But here's the thing. The dynamic island, in my opinion, should be where all the notifications come from.
That makes sense.
Okay. So like, for example, if I get a phone call, the dynamic island expands while I'm using the phone. Keep in mind, while I'm using it, while I'm looking at it. If I get a phone call, the dynamic island expands and gives me the answer button or the hang up button and shows me, it becomes the caller ID.
Right.
If there's a clock going on, it shows the clock, music playing, it shows that, whatever. But the problem, if I get a text message, that doesn't come from the dynamic island. The text message still comes in the same spot the text message came.
Notification center or something.
Yeah, it comes in a notification square and disappears. Like every notification should be coming from the dynamic island, and I don't know why it doesn't. So I would like to see that get used more because it is very slick. I know it's been mimicked, but it's still very slick. It's a very cool way of hiding the cameras on the front end of the display. It's not that noticeable to me, or even my wife. She thought she was going to hate it, and she doesn't notice it at all anymore. And I feel like my wife is a good litmus test for what does and does not work when it comes to product design. Because I'm enthusiast. My wife is mass market.
Right.
So they, I don't know. I'm fine with like I said, I'm fine with like the slab of glass. I don't necessarily know that I want it to be thinner. I don't need it to be thinner, but I'm interested to see what the iPhone Air is. It's the thing has been, I don't know. I don't know what they could do. Honestly, I want to see what the taptic buttons do, the solid state buttons. I want to see what that does. To me, the phone has been perfect for a number of years. Like I like the iPhone 4, the iPhone 4, 4S, 5, 5S, and all the iPhones from the 14 on. I know you don't like this, but they've had the flat sides, and I like that. I don't like the rounded bezels.
You don't like the curves.
No.
Gotcha.
I like the look. I like the look and the finish and the feel. I feel like it looks more premium. Like what the tolerances for the product design are lower when you have flat sides than when you have curved sides. That's just personal opinion.
Yeah.
So I honestly don't know what they could do other than like show me different colors. I mean, that's technically what my wife goes for now too, is like, did they release a phone in a color? Because like she had a 13, and when Apple announced the 14, you know, everything in the 14 lineup got an update, but I was like, you don't need to. No. She had a 14. Yeah. She had a 14, and then last year I said, oh, damn it, how'd this go? I told her to skip 1 year because she'd be literally buying the same phone again.
Right. Gotcha.
Like for the standard line, I can't remember if it was the 13 to the 14 or the 14 to the 15, but I said, don't get a new phone. We'll wait, and your iPhone upgrade program will run out, and then I think it was going from the 12 to I don't know. I'm sorry, dude. I can't remember what it was. Anyways,
it's okay.
This year though, like last year she got a 15. She skipped the 14. So it was the 13. She skipped the 14. Last year she bought a 15. And she's like, I'm just going to stick with this phone for another 2 years because that's what I can do that. I don't need to upgrade every year. And then I sat down and I was watching the keynote, and they showed the regular phones and they showed the pink one. And I was like, oh my God.
And she's going to get it because it's, yep.
So I immediately went, okay, what do I got to do to make sure she can get this phone? Because I knew that she was going to want it. And so she went, we were able to get rid of her old phone. And we got her the new one, and we put her in the iPhone upgrade program because next year, if they come out with a different color, she can just go ahead and grab that, or she can keep the phone for another year and be done with it. Like she just had options at that point. It was just, I don't know. We upgrade because it's mostly just because we can. And like I said, I think it's it's a peace of mind thing, and it's less frustrating. Like I don't have to worry about a product going into end of life. I don't have to worry about a product.
That's true.
What is that? What's that word everyone likes to throw around? Artificial. Obsolete. Artificial obsolescence or whatever it is.
Yeah, whatever.
That's not the right. That's not the right term I'm thinking of. But it's. I don't have to worry about that. So I don't know what I want. I don't know what I want to see, to be honest with you. It's usually, and every year before the iPhone event, I'm like, I don't know what they could possibly do. And then they get up there and they show me one thing, and I'm like, done. Where do I sign up?
Yep.
And it's either some crazy new feature I didn't know I wanted, like the dynamic island, or it's a new material that the thing was made out of that I thought was better than stainless steel, or honestly, this was probably the hardest one, but I honestly feel like the camera control is a window, kind of like the Face ID was on the iPhone 10. I feel like the camera control is a window into what's coming, and I'm probably wrong.
No, let's hope not. All right. Is there anything else about why iPhone that you want to talk about?
For me, it's just simplicity, man. It doesn't get any. It doesn't, and I don't have to worry about anything with my family. So I don't think there's anything else I can think of.
Very cool, very cool. All right, folks, we're going to go to a quick podcast ad break. You're going to hear a bunch of podcast ads from other podcasts that we promote here on the Geekcast Radio Network, and we're going to come back to close the show right after this.
Power of web shooters get real sticky.
Hello, geeks and geekettes! Looking for a podcast that covers a vast array of topics? Then check out Altered Geek Unleashed, where we discuss our thoughts on this week's geeky news, tech, gaming, television shows, movies, cartoons, comics, and more. So, get altered, get geeky with the Altered Geeks. Every Friday on the Geekcast Radio Network.
Yo, Joe, and welcome to the Cracktastic Plastic Podcast, where a punk rock band of brothers get together to talk about one of our shared loves, toy collecting.
Toy hunt by day, punk rock band by night. We'll take any excuse to get in the van.
We all collect different toy lines like those real American heroes. G.I. Joe! To the toys that are more than meets the eye, Transformers.
To He-Man and the Masters of the Universe.
From vintage to modern and all topics in between, you can always expect some rowdy and passionate discussion because we love talking toys here on the Cracktastic Plastic Podcast.
Hey, welcome to the Last Comic Shop Podcast!
A comic book podcast that actually talks about comics.
Yep, each week we open the shop up and read and discuss a comic.
Sometimes we pair that up with comic book movies or TV shows.
Or not. Lots of times it's just comic books and sound effects.
Oh, yes, definitely lots of sound effects.
So tune in on all the major podcasting platforms for the Last Comic Shop Podcast. Or check out our library of evergreen shows at www.lastcomicshoppodcast.com.
For the best in science fiction, join Mark Baumgarten, Vicky Jakubowski, Zion Kiros, and Juan San Miguel on the award-winning podcast Mark Who 42's Universe. Doctor Who, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Star Trek, and more are all fair game with Mark Who 42, which has been around since 2012 in one form or another. Mark Who 42's Universe is proud to be a part of Geekcast Radio Network, the best place to get your geek on. Listen to us bi-weekly or weekly if we have a topic relevant for you, our listeners. Mark Who 42 on Geekcast Radio Network, a match made in a galaxy near you.
You are receiving a transmission from the Rod Pod. Upload pending.
Stand by for soundtrack transfer.
I am Maggie.
And I am John.
And we are trapped, hurtling through space in a ship shaped like Rodimus's head.
The ship, for reasons we haven't been able to determine, contains the entire run of the IDW Transformers Phase 2 comic, which chronicle the events following the end of the war between the Autobots and Decepticons. So we figure we may as well read them all in order and report our findings to you. Stand by. Stand by.
Upload complete. Now.
The Rod Pod. Look for us at marriedwcomics.libsyn.com, at iTunes, at Stitcher, or wherever good podcasts can be found.
So, till all are one.
Till all are one.
On the Simplistic Reviews podcast, we talk movies. We talk TV. We talk...
Hello, Julie, what the heck are you doing?
Trying to make our spots sound more exciting by adding explosions.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you could have got the point across with sound effects, not the real thing.
Download this show on iTunes or at simplisticreviews.blogspot.com.
I'm sure your insurance company will cover that.
No, they won't.
No, they probably won't.
All right, we are back here on Geekcast Radio episode 340, Why iPhone, with Mike Boothninja Powers. This has been awesome. This has been fun.
Yeah. Just spouting nonsense about the iPhone.
Oh, stop. It's not nonsense. Knock it off. And I was looking into the Geekcast Radio archives and the Altered Geek archives. For the network, we did, I forget who we did it with, but I did the very first iPhone episode back in 2009. It was episode 4 of GCR, where who was on this? If this website would open faster. My buddy Bill Stebbins, Mobile Mike, and Jeff Farina. So back then, they were doing this thing called Mobile Tech Moment. Back in those days in 2009, and I had them on for the iPhone originally. And then, according to the research here, on September 22nd of 2017, you and Steve did iPhone 10, CBS Star Trek issues, HD standards, and all that stuff over on Altered Geek. I'm pretty sure that was you. Yeah, you were joined to catch up back in 2017. So, fun times all around here at the Geekcast Radio Network. You got anything you want to promote, anything you want to mention, anything you want to tell people that you're up to, whatever you want to do?
Yeah, I'm not up to a whole lot. I don't really post on social media anymore, but it's Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it is at Boothninja. Actually, most of my social media handles are at Boothninja81, but I don't really update on them anymore. Mostly because I just stuck my head in the sand, and I've been better for it. It's like I have thoughts and opinions about things, and I know I've reached out to like you and Steve like a couple of times, but then it usually ends up being like I don't feel like sharing my thoughts and opinions. It's like I don't feel like shouting into that space. So,
well, give him some love, folks. Tell him you want to hear his thoughts and opinions, because we want to talk to him about his thoughts and opinions on stuff, because we enjoy it. It's all about the friendship around here at the Geekcast Radio Network.
It is. It's just about how much energy I want to put into things.
Absolutely. Well, I always tell people, I tell every person that I have ever podcasted with in the almost 16 years I've been doing this. At this point, now that I'm recording, editing, publishing, I'm doing all the stuff. All these people like this, I gave you like 5 or 6 bullet points. All you got to do is show up and talk. You don't have to, sometimes maybe if I want somebody to read a comic or watch a TV show, that'll be fine. But you don't have to do any of the editing. You're not doing the recording. You don't have to worry. I mean, if you want to promote it, please promote it, obviously, once it's eventually out and online and everything else. But I do all the work. You just come and have fun. That's always been my thing. I'll take care of everything as long as we have the conversation.
It is fun. I just have to get rolling. I think part of the problem for me is I don't interact with, when I was podcasting a lot, I was working at the movie theater, and I was around people that I could have conversations about movies and TV shows and all this other stuff. And right now it's where I live, and with the pandemic the last few years, it's primarily just been my wife and I. We talk amongst ourselves, and that's as far as I need to go. I don't really I don't have geek conversations with my friends or anything like that. So it's I've shared my opinions. I'm done. And it's I don't know. I don't, I'm just, in general, it's just one of those things. I'm not, it's not it's not a one more place for me to share it anymore. It's I don't know. Maybe I've just grown up. I don't know what it is. Anyways, no, I will definitely promote this because I did have fun doing it. And I do like talking about all things Apple, but like I've said, I will never defend them and their choices. I just know their choices.
Right.
I am okay with their choices, and I like their products. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like I said, this was never about bringing you on here. And like I said before in the middle of the show, I'm like, ew, he has cooties because he's an Apple. It was never about that. It was about finding out why you, for me, I don't know if I said it at all in this podcast, but for me, I had this Pixel 6 Pro from 2021 when it launched. Up until this year, I had it for 3 years because I didn't feel like the phone did everything I wanted it to do. And now the 7 that I have does pretty much the same the 6 did. There's not much change. At least for me, other than the actual design. But again, I put a case on it, so you don't even see the back of the phone unless you close the case. So, yeah, I mean, it was just about having a fun conversation. And I haven't talked about Apple stuff. Like I said, we haven't talked about Apple stuff since 2017. Like, we just don't, because we're not, like, Steve isn't in that arena, and neither am I. You are. And I think it's an opinion and a conversation that our audience would want to hear, because I'm sure there are plenty of our listeners out there that are iPhone and Apple product people like you are. So again, everybody's opinion matters no matter what. And I just want to have fun.
I'll always share my opinion, but I will never play. I will never. Yeah, whatever. I can't think of what I'm trying to say right now. But yeah, no, I'm always happy to. I think I'm more likely to talk about Apple than I am about anything else right now. But it's probably also because it's September and I just got new toys. So who knows?
Yeah, you just got new. Yeah, exactly. You got to talk about the new toys. Absolutely. All right, folks. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Geekcast Radio, and wish you'll join us next time when we will be talking about. Now, I wrote this down in the middle of the episode, and this is something Mike and I are going to have to talk about off air, but. You had mentioned your Fridays and Saturdays and working 17 hours, so I wrote down in all caps, in bold, working at the movie theater. I don't know if that's going to be the next episode or not, folks. Depends on what we say in the behind the scenes and all that stuff. But for now, I am TFG1Mike with
Mike Boothninja Powers.
Thank you for listening. Until next time.
We're going to use a word with a lot less baggage. Windows.
Yeah, but Windows is...